So we are coming back to the second part or part 2 of the Aubrey Marcus podcast. I'm going to catch you guys up really quick if you haven't seen it, or a quick refresher. Aubrey is 44 years old. Valana is 38, I believe. And then Alana, I'm going to use my language. Maybe it's not perfect, like spiritual baby mama to be, or the third wheel on the triple relationship thing. Alana, and she's 28. She's new. In this podcast, and to catch up on their relationship, they got married, Aubrey and Valana, after 2 weeks. I did not know that. I did hear the story that their souls were joined in a ketamine ceremony, and that's when he decided to be monogamous, and he was absolutely sure. He does say that in this new podcast, how he's absolutely sure about not radical monogamy with 2 wives, or a wife and a spiritual baby mama. I'll touch on the spiritual baby mama language later. I just think it's more accurate than the words that are being used, in my own opinion. So it seemed, my understanding, it was a monogamous relationship, apparently, or it changed, or it always was. And maybe I didn't know all the information. I'm not super familiar with Aubrey's content. It was a monogamish, meaning that like pretty much monogamy, but then like she has her lover, he has his lovers, and I think the new term, spiritual 3-ways, or whatever you want to call it. So on the podcast, their relationship is in this monogamish. They're in Miami. He's at the gym. He gets a download clear. I'm not making this up, by the way. He gets a download from God, as clear as he's ever felt it, to go on Raya, which is like which is like expensive Bumble, right? Goes on Raya. You're going to meet someone special, the second girl. He has this connection. He talks about a bunch of serendipities. You know, he just happened to go on it at that time. She'd only been on the app for a little while or whatever, and she was only in Miami 2 more days or something. So from there, they talk about this God bomb ceremony, which I believe is ketamine and marijuana. I'll talk about why I would say marijuana could be considered a plant medicine. Ketamine is not a plant medicine. However, it could be used medicinally. More on that. Again, my opinion from being in the medicine community and being connected to having organized, I'm not a shaman, organized people to bring them to Colombia for ayahuasca. So my perspective. So there is a ceremony where Aubrey is in the shaman role with the girl that is going to be his potentially, or is on her way to be his future, I'm just calling it more practical, tactical language, second wife, spiritual baby mama, girlfriend, kind of spiritual girlfriend. So there's that. And then there is them being in Egypt, the 3 of them, and Aubrey hears clearer than he's ever heard. Isis talks to him and says, you need to get both these women pregnant. Those are the big highlights. It is the 3 of them on a podcast and a therapist, I believe former rabbi, by the name of Mark Gaffney, who also has quite a few sexual abuse and sexual allegations against him. I think that's pretty important. That's the basic of what's going on in 4 minutes. So there's a lot of mystical words used in the podcast. I'm not super familiar with Aubrey's content. I think that's kind of how he talks. And I know he's really passionate about poetry. Some of it sounds really nice. Some of it makes what I would just say is no sense, and not a lot. Like, especially working with guys, I like to use words that you can put some emotion behind, but also there's data behind them. Or like you can make sense, you can picture it. So not heavy poetry words. For example, if I use, and you may love these words, I'm not making fun of them, but they don't work for me, I don't use them. You may say divine feminine, divine masculine. What does that mean? To me, it can mean of God or something, right? Or of the universe. But for it to mean something for someone to concretely understand, I don't see it as that. And here's why. If I say John had this experience growing up, which made John as a teenager develop his feminine side, right? And then John had this experience after his brother died and he had to be the man of the house to develop his masculine side. Because of John's life experience in his teens and 20s, John really integrated his masculine and feminine energy. To me, there's an explanation. It makes more sense versus some of these words. So I think, my opinion from the Aubrey stuff, it's a lot of mystical language to hide. Divine feminine, divine masculine, tons of people use that, I get it. But even calling it what it is, it's a relationship constellation. And I've been around enough plant medicine communities, yoga, conscious this, whatever. And I think some of that language can be beautiful and it really vibes with people and they can use it like a dance and poetry and it's beautiful, great. And I think a lot of it is to hide or to get lost in abstract language, to not really be accountable. And going into that, I think a thing that bothered people, I think there's a lot of things that are under the surface what bothered people about what Aubrey brought up in this choice. Aubrey doesn't own his choice. Aubrey's not responsible for his choice. Aubrey is being devoted to God. And when you say this thing, which I have at groups, we hosted a group this week and I brought it up and some people are bursting out laughing. And it kind of makes sense. Like, this guy got a message from God to download Bumble. And it might be true, I'm not saying it isn't, but it's a wild fucking story. To download Bumble or Raya, whatever, to then meet his new, I think it's a more appropriate term, spiritual baby mama to be. Because it's not his second wife and it's not his girlfriend, so calling it the third part of the divine constellation of the universe is like, I don't know. Does anyone really know what that means? It sounds kind of cool, but does anyone really know what the fuck he's talking about? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of nice spiritual stuff. Let's come back to planet Earth and use words that make a little more sense. So I don't feel that Aubrey owns it. I think if Aubrey said, hey, I sold my company for $100 million. I want to have 2 wives. It's hard being, for better or worse, one of the faces of open relationships and plant medicine in America. And I get a lot of attention and I'm really tempted. I want 2 wives. I think that would be honest. I think people would have been pissed still, but there would be more respect. There's a guy named Paul Chek. He's a body worker. Not a body worker. He's like this whole health and fitness guy. Body worker's probably a big underestimate and underestimating what he does, but that's a part of it. I'm a bit more familiar with his content. He has an interesting story. There's a clip, you can go on YouTube and watch it. It's 80 seconds long, I think. It's not 3 hours. And Paul shares watching his father be kind of a womanizer growing up. And Paul becomes similar. And he goes, I just like attention from women, which that makes sense. Women like attention from men, men like attention from women. It does show up differently. To me, when I listen to him, it's just, I go, that makes sense. He gets married. He says, I felt suffocated for 17 years being married. You know, I did the Playboy thing kind of before marriage. Now I'm married 17 years. And now my devotion to God, to whatever, is helping people with their health through diet stuff, body work, these strategies. I mean, there's a lot of stuff he offers as far as I know. Interesting guy. He then comes to a conclusion after now being divorced and dating around and doing the Playboy thing, but it interfering with his mission, and said, you know what? I don't know if this is me being a healthy male. I don't know if this is trauma from my dad that I watched this, but I can't be monogamous. And I settled on the best solution for me that honors my mission and how I want to help people. Because if I'm just distracted with running around with women and I can't do what I believe God put me here to do, for him, that's incongruent with his value system, right? So he says, I needed 2 wives. And if you listen to him, again, Teach Their Own, check it out, Paul Chek, Chek. It just seems really honest. It seems really direct. And it seems like he totally owns it and takes responsibility. And I think one of the things that's bothering people is there's such a song and dance with Aubrey. I liked Aubrey a lot, and I'll get to why I respect him less as a man now. Because it's so mystical. It's just, and I've talked with quite a few women about this. It's interesting to watch him in an interview who has a very grounded presence. Like he sits there still and is calm and introspective and connecting with the room. But the way he actually talks and processes things is very not grounded. When Paul says, I just decided I needed 2 wives, and you know what? It's the best thing that works for me and works for my wives. It's very grounded. It's very honest. So I think there is now where I would decipher, is it playing the role of a grounded guy? Or is it actually that the different parts of you match that you're showing up that way? Because if you committed to your wife with monogamy and said, our souls are joined during a ketamine ceremony, I know this is it. And then 5 years later, having your, I don't know what you want to call it, he calls it a divine constellation of whatever, like your spiritual, the soon-to-be, well, make it sound a little nicer, the soon-to-be mother of your child that's not your wife. Spiritual baby mama sounds a little cuter and more fun, more accurate. Like, I think to just call it what it is. And it brings into question of ethics, which, you know, people talk about this as an ethical. Ethics and integrity, for better or worse, are subjective to the individual. You can do horrible things and that can be within your value system. I brought up ketamine earlier. Ketamine's not a plant medicine. Ketamine can be used medicinally, and here's what I mean by this. Cocaine and heroin, these are drugs. Like, is there medical applications? I guess. I don't know. I mean, painkillers, but actually like heroin, like street heroin, and cocaine that people are sniffing up their nose, these are drugs. There's no heroin plant medicine ceremonies where people lay around on mats and have puke buckets, and there's Palo Santo and copal and sage. That's not a thing, as far as I've ever heard. On the other hand, let's have something that's specifically a plant medicine, ayahuasca. You could do cocaine and go to a concert, right? You are not gonna drink ayahuasca and go to the club. I've worked with ayahuasca for 8 years. I've helped with ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is not a recreational substance. I would be curious to hear about the person that was wild enough to try and make it that way, because they're gonna have a very unenjoyable time, because the medicine senses that if you drink ayahuasca and go to a concert, that's going to be probably the worst concert of your life. So there's certain things where there's clear boundaries, and there's certain things that can live in the middle and kind of play back and forth. MDMA, ketamine, LSD, these are man-made compounds. Do they have medicinal use? I would say they can. Are they hardcore medicines? Like they grow on a tree, or there's 1 or 2 ingredients, or it's psilocybin, jopo, combo, bufo, different things like that. Ibogaine, over here, no. But they can kind of live in both worlds. But at the end of the day, if this is dead center, and this is ayahuasca, heroin, and cocaine, they would still be more here. But they can have a medicinal application. They are not a plant medicine. If you look at these different shamanic communities, when you mix these things, a lot of people are very, no. Like, you don't mix different brews of ayahuasca together, generally. Or unless you're a shaman, I've seen this from being involved in ceremonies for many years. you wouldn't drink Colombian ayahuasca, one night Peruvian, Brazilian. There is one of the kind of ayahuasca spas in Costa Rica does do that. That would be very 99% of the medicine community in Latin America would never ever do that and condone that. Why is that important? When you're mixing different substances, let's say marijuana, you can use that as a drug. That does just grow on a tree. So again, it could live in both worlds. I think it's abused 95% of the time personally. We are taking a potential medicine with a thing that's a drug that's used medicinally, combining those while you're the shaman. I'm talking about the Aubrey thing. And then the girl who's going to become your potential baby mom is the client. In my opinion, being in the medicine community, the amount of potential unethical things and shady or misinterpreted things, room for error, is enormous. If Aubrey's married for 5 years and him and his wife are going to share a plant medicine thing as a couple, very different circumstance. Because they're both have the same role for a while. Someone's not in an authority role being a shaman, and then also there's the girlfriend, baby mama to be looking up to that person. And how also when someone's under the influence, how the facilitator, the shaman, could manipulate things. And someone can go in it with good intentions. It can be subconscious things of what you're wanting, and it's messy. Is it ethical? Is it integrity? That is kind of subjective. For me to do that, I would say no, not in a million years. I've never been in that role. I've been a trip sitter for someone taking mushrooms. But so is that a questionable behavior where you're in that? I want to present a lot of things. I'll give my opinion, but it's ultimately for you to think and decide. Is Villana really safe in this dynamic? His wife, again, Aubrey's 44, Villana's 37 or 38, and the new girl, Aubrey is the husband, Villana, the wife, Alana, almost same name, is 28, so about 10 years younger than the wife. Does his wife truly feel safe in this dynamic? And if you're watching this, I hope you're a guy watching it, if you are a guy, and there's another woman nearby. If I was a woman and I felt, and again, not a woman, I'm a short, bald guy from Wisconsin on the internet, living in Columbia. If I was a woman who'd been married to a guy for 5 years and I felt I was the queen, let's use that language, and now I'm not in the same dynamic. I'm the queen, but there's also like a second queen or a queen girlfriend or a queen baby mama to be. I would not feel safe. The framing of this video is very interesting because it's almost like whether it's, I don't know if that's Aubrey's influence or Mark Gaffney. We'll get to Mark Gaffney later. Very weird. Very weird. The weirdest person in the most unusual thing, in my opinion, in the whole dynamic is Mark Gaffney. Does his wife really feel safe in this dynamic? I can't imagine that she does. Oh, that's where I was going. Apparently, Villana had been cheated on a lot, or every relationship she's been in. So the way I think it's been, whether it's Mark or Aubrey or whoever, said, hey, you haven't been in monogamy anyways. You never have been. You've always been cheated on. And I would look at that a little different. That was someone they agreed to monogamy and then a partner deceived them. Wouldn't say they've never been in monogamy. They've just got lied to. In their mind, they've been in monogamy, right? So that's brought up of like, well, Villana has these things to let go of and heal and sacrifice. I don't see it that way, personally. if I was married and after 5 years my wife wanted another husband, I would not see that as I just have some stuff to heal and sacrifice. I'd be like, this isn't gonna work. And it's an interesting circumstance because I genuinely do believe, for better or worse, you can say it's a trauma bond, it's whatever, Aubrey and Volana really like each other. And I think there's some deeper things what's underneath it is you can feel, and I think this is why it pisses people off, you can feel that they have a very genuine connection. And there's someone that could have been on your relationship vision board a year ago, or maybe recently. And now you hear this and you're like, I don't know, was this bullshit? Were we deceived? Again, I don't watch all the podcasts, so I might have some of the information a little off. I thought they were in a monogamous relationship when they had some spiritual three-ways or whatever. I think Volana is the one I feel for the most. Because I feel she's the most genuine, the most honest, has probably the most to lose. And to see someone there go, and I made this sacrifice and just another sacrifice, and then going, this seems painful, girl. And I think you're seeing Aubrey potentially, again, I don't know, my opinion based on 3-hour podcasts, spinning so many things to still kind of have monogamy and then still have polyamory. And it just seems, it actually seems very non-masculine. To go, hey, again, I have $100 million, I sold my company, I'm the face of ayahuasca in many capacities and plant medicine and spiritual stuff and biohacking and open relationships, and I can't be monogamous. I need 2 wives or I need an open relationship. To me, that feels like ownership. It feels like personal responsibility, and people are going to judge it anyways. Where, yeah, this just doesn't seem direct. It doesn't seem like owning himself and what he wants. And again, I don't know, but when it does seem odd. God told me to download Bumble, and then the goddess of fertility told me to pyramid in Egypt. So when you watch this, and it's different to listen to it than to watch it, do you really think his wife is all in? I know she says she is. And again, gentlemen, if you're watching this video right now and they're up to date, grab a woman and pull her in when I ask the question again. Does Volana really feel safe? As a man, when we think of being a provider and protector, we think of being able to beat up some other guy, keep our house safe, earn money. As humans, we have shit. You know what I mean? I can think of my last relationship that ended that I realized I had shit to work on I was not that aware of. And that bothered my pride because I was like, okay, at least if I wasn't aware of that. Oh, at least if I was aware of it and doing something about it, then I'm like, I can have kind of a healthy sense of ego about it. But like, oh, wow, I missed at her. I didn't think that was that important. My point is, I can look back at previous relationships and go, fuck, like I wasn't able, I had unhealed parts of me and stuff in conflict in me that I wasn't able to protect my girlfriend from because I hadn't resolved it. And that didn't show up in cheating, but it showed up in shitty behavior and being a dickhead, in drinking and smoking weed, in GHB at different points in my life, from 18 months ago to whatever, more than a decade ago. We're humans. And as a guy, there's something powerful to falling in love with really who you are in your essence and your heart, and falling in love with the shit to go, man, I haven't figured this out yet, or like, this is a dark part of me I need to express, understand, integrate, share, heal, and alchemize, whatever it is. Or just go, hey, listen, I'm this far along. Maybe this is just how I am. I'm 40. The next 40 years, this is a part of me. I got good parts and bad parts, kind of. So I think there's something that feels, let's just call it what it feels to a lot of people, kind of dishonest. And not, as a man, kind of just owning yourself, owning your balls, like, hey, this is what I want, and it might be rough. And being under the umbrella of God and ISIS and these different things. A friend of mine brought something up this week. We were talking about it because it's been a popular topic, this whole Aubrey Marcus podcast thing. Let's assume the goddess of ISIS wanted these three people to be together and for him to bear 2 children, one with each of them, right? I'm so glad half the room was women, because I wouldn't have thought of this. And my female friend Anya goes, well, if that's true, shouldn't have the goddess of ISIS talk to the women, not him? And I was like, yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Why wouldn't the goddess just talk to both of them and then the 2 girls have an uncomfortable conversation? And again, none of these things are verifiable. You can get yourself to equal as much trouble going to an ayahuasca ceremony. I've done it, where any great facilitator or shaman will say, hey, some of this stuff is a metaphor. Some of this stuff is just nonsense. Some of this stuff is divine truth. You have to sort through that. Don't quit your job or get divorced or do something radical in the first month after a ceremony. You have to sit with this and kind of figure this out and integrate it. And maybe it's just a crazy metaphor trying to show you something, like a dream state. And we don't know. Did God tell him to download Raya? Maybe. I don't know. Sounds a little fishy. Did ISIS tell him he has to get these 2 women pregnant? Maybe. I think it would have been more interesting if ISIS told the women. If you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, never considered that. Once my friend Anya said that, I was like, There's other things that are talked about. Again, I don't know Aubrey, Valana, or Alana. Valana's the wife again. Alana, almost the same name. The other girl, I'm affectionately referring to her as the spiritual baby mama to be, because I am not using mystical terms like the divine constellation of whatever, because I don't know what that means. So, spiritual girlfriend, spiritual baby mama to be. They talk about her purity and her intent. I don't know anything about her. Could her intent to be the main wife in 2 years? It could be. Could Aubrey's intent be, what if Alana can't have kids and then Alana will be my new wife and then I'll have another new wife in 10 years? I don't know. I think there's enough, there should be a caution to men that living a life, and I haven't figured this out perfectly by any means, but I got to listen to my heart and my connection with God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, and go, what the fuck am I supposed to do here on planet Earth? Who am I? And navigate that. And that's not a straight line. But when it's being made that listening to God is having this relationship, I don't know, it sounds fishy. It's like, I gotta listen to God. I need to go get drunk with my friends on Friday. It is the divine order. It's like, I don't know if that's what God said. Maybe they did, or he did, or she did, whatever. And also free will comes in. Like, he could say, like, I'll give you an example. I'll tell you a personal story. Why not? This is a much longer video than anything I've made. I believe what I grew up in, what most men participate in, is what I would call forced monogamy. Meaning, when we're 18 or 20, we are not thinking about monogamy. We're not thinking about having 5 wives, but our body is hormonally drugged. Women want their hormones to be understood and how they change so often. Generally, men and women don't want to understand each other's hormones. Men are on drugs. when they're at that age. Drugs. Just like you're on drugs at certain times in your cycle, ladies. It doesn't give men permission to cheat, but it's almost beautiful and horrible as a man, because you're like a retarded Labrador that just like, you don't care what a girl, her character, her personality, your body just tells you, the thing, procreate. So why is that important? That as men, that we're wired this way at 20 years old to pursue. For women, they're not really. It's not that women can't be, but women aren't thinking about, God, I wish this and that to the same extent. Women are more wired for monogamy. Men, we participate in what I would say forced monogamy, meaning it feels unnatural at 20. We then continue, or we continue and then we cheat because we go, I want a family, I want kids, whatever it is. And I want my family dynamic. I don't want my mom to think I'm a terrible person. I'm gonna cheat. Depending on the country, I live in Latin America, cheating is way different. Still happens a lot in North America, but not nearly as much. I'll look at porn. We'll have beliefs like, well, I can't do that with my wife, but I could have done that with a girlfriend, so I could do that with a woman in another city, but that would be just like, we'll have weird stuff. My point is, guys go from this forced monogamy, they can go to non-monogamy or playing the field, and then hopefully they graduate to something, I would like to say it's integrated, or it's something that they view as a higher calling. Whether it's monogamy or not, I think a lot of people would prefer monogamy. I can tell you myself, growing up in forced monogamy, feeling constrained in that, going through my Playboy phase. My Playboy phase was in Colombia, for the most part, some in the US, but telling the truth, which I think is a rare part of it, which is really important, guys, if you're gonna go through it. At least let women know what they're getting into. To go, hey, I'm dating around. When you have 4 girlfriends and you're lying, that's very different. And then also for guys, I think some guys need to go through that to go, this isn't fulfilling, or this is messy, or whatever it is, to then come to something more evolved, more, you can use the word conscious, where there's something, especially for guys, where your heart and your cock agree. And there is such a thing. And I think for guys, it's an evolved perspective. I can tell you 5 years ago, I didn't see things that way. I thought I'm gonna have 3 or 4 wives and have 10 children. That's honestly what I thought. And then I was like, what would really deeply fulfill me? What would be the highest expression of who I want to be? And that's not it. So I think how we go through things, and then also with our genders, how we judge the opposite. How we judge women as this, men judge women this way, women judge men that way. And even in the ways we kind of want to be understood, we don't always want to understand the other person's perspective. Going back to that, women want their hormonal cycle, which is a 28-day cycle, but it's not. It's mini cycles in 28-day cycles, so it's at least 4. It could be 11 and a half, depending on what you believe. Certain shamanic traditions, they believe the hormonal shift is pretty significant every 2.5 days, so it's actually like 11 and a half cycles. But as women, do you want to understand men's hormones? The answer is generally no. Do men want to understand women's? The answer is generally no. So when we understand these different things, we can go, okay, I can actually appreciate that person's like 50% of the population. So whether it's Aubrey or it's someone else, got a visitor, let's fly, to understand, the other hormones. Because I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong with how he's operating this. It just seems a bit fishy. And I'm gonna get to the pinnacle of the fishiness. Mark Gaffney. a guy who has numerous sexual assault allegations, who doesn't seem like he's had a whole lot going on in a while, looking into him. And he doesn't seem to be a guide or a coach or a therapist in this equation, if you listen to it. He seems like someone who was hired to present a narrative and for damage control. Again, my perspective, I don't know Aubrey. It seems like, hey, I want to have this agreement with these two women. Help me make this work. A great coach or therapist, that's not their role. That's not what it seems like is going on at all. A friend of mine, Jesse Elder, he's doing a video tomorrow talking about a bunch of different things. I didn't catch it because I didn't watch most of it, but the subliminal messages and the, I want to use his words, not mine, just the way Mark's communicating to manipulate. So the biggest thing that smelled funky from that podcast was Mark Gaffney. Like, go watch it. Don't take my word for it. Go watch it. I only got a couple more things left. I think one of the other things that's really getting to people is, I should make another video for just this part. I'm gonna share a couple other things, and I'm actually gonna make another video for that part. Valana talking about sacrificing over and over and over. Seems painful. It seems really painful. I can't imagine being in a relationship with a woman I'm committed to and making some, whatever it is, some kind of sacrifice. Unless it's sacrificing something to save my child's life and I'm in super conflict about it or something. But to the level of emotional pain she seems to be in, for him to essentially, whatever you want to call it, again, I'm not saying it's a mystical, masculine, feminine, divine constellation of the universe. That sounds like woo-woo nonsense to me. Doesn't make any sense. That now she's married to a man who has a spiritual girlfriend, baby mama to be, or kind of second wife, whatever you want to call it. Like we use real language. It seems really painful. And lastly, I will leave you with this. Make that other part separately, so tune into that other part. That part's something I'm really excited about, so I don't want to, this went on a little longer than I anticipated. They close out with how they are doing this to serve humanity. Let's look at Aubrey's vantage point. Do you think Aubrey is the first guy in the history of the universe to have two wives or a wife and a girlfriend? Whether the wife and the girlfriend knew about each other or not, in this case they do. And also, he's not the first one to say God told him to do that. Now, maybe God did. I don't know. It seems a little fishy. So, they're having a trouble to inspire humanity. What I predict will happen from this, I think there will be men and women, because I'm seeing both, that are more firm than ever before in what they believe about relationships and monogamy. And I say, oh, like that's how I felt. I was like, wow, I think this non-monogamy stuff is even wilder than I thought. And I think there's going to be other, does it have to have an archetype? Maybe it does. Skinny vegan guys in Austin, in San Diego, and Seattle that are trying to open up their relationship so they can have their cake and eat it too. Yeah. And a bunch of other things in between. So I gave you my opinion. I gave you a synopsis. What do you think about it? What do you feel? And also, at the end of the day, these are adults that are agreeing to this. But it's interesting that it's pulling people in so many directions. And I think it is Something in the human spirit is crying out. And this is my long one. I'm going to do my short one on the next YouTube. I'll post that later. Thank you for tuning in, and love to hear what you think about it below. This is Phil Jelovic on a, beautiful, rainy Friday night in Colombia saying ciao, ciao. See you soon. Thank you for tuning in.